What are you playing this weekend? What are you playing this weekend? What are you playing this weekend? Hey, what are you playing this weekend? What are you playing this weekend? What are you playing this weekend? Hey, what are you playing this weekend? What are you playing this weekend? Hey, what are you playing this weekend? Hey, what are you playing this weekend? Hi, I'm Orylen, and these are the games that I played in 2018. Starting off the list in no particular order is Cave Story. Every so often I've seen a streamer play the first hour of Cave Story and then move on to something else, and no streamer or video has really attempted to recommend playing it, even though some say it's really good. It's why it's kind of taken me so long to play it myself. But I'm glad I eventually did, and I feel that it's actually aged very well. Everything feels tight, and you get a constant stream of new weapons and gear for new abilities. The difficulty is also fair, if challenging, where your weapon gets stronger the more you defeat enemies and collect what they drop, but gets worse the more you get hit. The main thing I like about Cave Story is putting your own challenges on top of what the game provides, because the game expects you to some degree, in order to get access to the actual final area of the game and the best ending. It's really amazing what one jump can do to change the course of the game's story. The Picross E series, 1 through 8. Yes, all 8 of the Picross E series at this point. I commute. A lot. And during my commute, I need something small and simple in order to pass the time between destinations. And so on my 3DS, I bought the first of the Picross E series. And then I bought the next one. And so on, until there were none left available. I've heard that E9 is supposed to be coming soon, as it's been out in Japan since August of 2018. But Picross is a great puzzle game series where you can make tiny pixel pictures by following the clues for where the correct pixels are. Think Minesweeper meets Sudoku. There are also normal and free rule sets, as well as Mega Picross and Micross, which changes the game in their own ways. But there is something to say regarding playing all 8 of these games back-to-back in the course of a year. I don't feel like they were designed for that. You only get rewarded for extra puzzles in later games for having E1, 2, and 3, even though there's more, and you do run into duplicate puzzles very easily, especially with the largest puzzles of regular and Mega Picross. But there is a lot of Picross you can play, so if you'd like to give it a shot on your 3DS, smartphone versions are available, or on the Nintendo Switch as well with the S series. Bastion. I'm really not able to say that I'm a fan of anything, especially when it comes to video games. I may like a lot of different series or developers like BioWare, Insomniac, or relevantly Supergiant Games, but that does not mean that I have played any of their games. I've simply bought most to all of the games, so games like Bastion have been sitting in my backlog for the last 5 years, and I know that it's good, you know it's good, Transistor is also good, Pyre is also good, and it looks like Hades is also good since it was announced this year, and you can play it early access. I just have not played any of them personally. So this is a message to everyone watching this video that I have finally played Bastion. Bastion is good, but you know that already. Just add that I'm terrible. Maybe go play Bastion again. Four-Sided Fantasy. Four-Sided Fantasy started on Kickstarter back in 2014 and officially released in 2016, and is a neat experience, pushing the imagination of what you can do with screen wrapping in order to make a puzzle game. I found it to be a really relaxing experience, and is one of the few games that I have bought this year and finished on the same day. That does mean it's short, which is understandable because there's only so much you can do with one idea, but the integration of seasonal atmospheres help move the game forward. I'd say give it a look if you want to play something really short and sweet. King Oddball. I didn't think I was going to play this for as long as I did, but I guess I needed something like this year. Getting it free through PlayStation Plus also helps too. There's really not much to say about this game though, other than it being an Angry Birds clone. So I guess moving on? Downwell. I got into a trend of playing a few more casual experiences than I usually do in a year, which is good because I have a lot of those in my backlog that I could easily finish but just don't. And Downwell fulfilled my roguelike for the year. Personally, I like playing with boulder style in this game because honestly I found it easier, but I also like seeing the guy roly-poly his way down into the unknown eldritch pit below. I mentioned in my 2017 list that I'm not really a fan of roguelikes, mainly because you can get to the end of the game and lose because your loadout is absolutely pitiful, and find your current run is taking a nosedive and it's better to restart than go on. I also have terrible luck, and my own skill is shaky at best, but I do like Downwell because of the speed and momentum you can get yourself into as you descend, catching breathers as you go with a cool time stop ability the game loves showcasing. And it's concepts like this in roguelike games that make me come back to them despite my weaknesses. I wonder if there'll be another roguelike for me in 2019. Most likely. Forma 8. Or Forma.8, or Formate? I don't really know how to pronounce this game's name, so we're off to a good start with this one. Forma 8 is clearly inspired by Metroidvanias, and sets itself in an abandoned world devoid of life where you play as a tiny robot. I want to talk about the story the game has, but it's difficult to follow and also forgets that it kind of exists for the majority of it. Here's the synopsis. In a distant future, the small exploration probe Forma 8 is stranded alone on the surface of an alien planet. He got parted away from his companion by an accidental event and has a life or death mission to accomplish. He needs to find and recover a powerful energy source deep under the surface before it's too late. And upon reading that again, I realized that this game really doesn't possess any weight. Not in the story, and also not in the controls, since you gently float everywhere, and certainly not in the combat. Some of the boss fights you don't even know are boss fights. They're just big enemies who get no fanfare. My favorite being a giant orb you don't even fight, but run away from before it destroys you, as it tests your ability to effectively use the floating movement controls. It is also my game of this year that I fell asleep during. Mainly because of the empty, somewhat peaceful atmosphere the game provides. Mixed with the floaty controls and the large expanses of nothing, you have the tendency of backtracking through time and time again. Forma 8 is difficult for me to recommend, but if you are looking for another Metroidvania you might not have played, you might get some enjoyment out of it because it looks pretty at points. Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. So, Spyro is 2018's hot reinvigorated hotness, right? Well, let's talk about Crash Bandicoot instead, because what's relevancy? But I'm not gonna talk a lot about the whole trilogy, because people who are more popular have already talked about that for the past year and a half. I just want to talk about Crash 1, and what it means to me in this remastered collection. If you have not played Crash Bandicoot at all, it will probably be the earliest Naughty Dog game you will play, originally released in 1996, and is easy to see now how rough it actually was, even when comparing it to Crash 2. It's why when a remaster comes out, my priority is looking for any serious quality of life improvements, compared to the original. And while I was playing through Crash 1, I am glad to say that it feels more connected to the rest of the trilogy now. It still has its own level structure, separated from warp rooms. The story is barely there, but I hardly mind. It's the little things, like having an actual pause menu, that are thumbs up for me. But the best thing that the remaster possesses for Crash 1 is better communication of requirements for gems. In the original, you had to interpret body language from Crash himself at the end of the level to determine anything, whether he was tired, wiping his brow, or jumping for joy. Of course, there is being bombarded by boxes, but the idea that you also had to get through the level without losing a life was difficult to understand the first few goes. Also, having the boxes in the bonus level now count towards the box total connected to the other games, so that's another thing. But the big thing that I welcomed with open arms in Crash 1 and Crash 2 was the introduction of time trials to those games. This made Crash 1 the hardest game in the series for me, and I went full force into testing my muscle memory, and came out incredibly satisfied. Part of it was the limited moveset that Crash 1 still possessed, like the lack of a slide and run power-up, and the official introduction of Stormy Ascent pushed my abilities to the limit, and the introduction of Future Tense in Crash 3 demonstrates, to me, that new Crash levels that feel classic can be achieved. Bravo to Vicarious Visions for this entire trilogy. Just bravo. Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days. My Kingdom Hearts journey continued slowly this year with what I consider the most human out of all of the games. I made the decision that I would play the actual games as well and not just settle for the movies in the collection, even if it's an unpopular opinion, but there's always some value, even if not a lot, to the DS games. There's something strangely satisfying to see the Organization 13 members hang around in a lounge when they don't have a job to do, taking days off, and Zexion specifically sad that when the events of Rechain of Memories actually happen, he laments about losing a lot of his poker group because they died in Castle Oblivion. I like that a lot. So I can now officially say that I'm ready for Kingdom Hearts 2, while most other people are ready for Kingdom Hearts 3. Hooray! Still glad I know where I am. I'll probably be ready for that by like 2023, who knows. Thumper. I've seen and read a lot of recommendations for this game the last couple years. A rhythm game that feels primal in its music, or lack of music, with horror elements in what the boss, or bosses I guess, look like. I eventually finished Thumper. It took me a year and a half, but I finished it. It unfortunately did not hold my attention though, and it's a shame because I do want to like it. There's just a lot about Thumper that makes me dislike it. The removal of what some people consider to be music, stripping back everything to thumps and beats that change based on the time signature it falls under, is great training for your musical ear, but then you lose the rhythm. And then there is this pause as your beetle stops to have its shell explode in grandiose fashion before jumping back in. But I find that the pause is just enough for your rhythm to be lost, and you might not get it back again before you hit something else. And you can't see what the next obstacle is due to the particles, and then you die, and now you have to restart the entire level. This is a really big sore spot in the game for me, but it's also part of its core, which makes it frustrating, especially when you look at the level design as you go through the game. Imagine going through one section of a level, and you crash and burn just before reaching the end. Now imagine that section of the level involving you going through a loop of the rhythm 3 times over, making the session last over a minute, which can feel like an eternity in a rhythm game. The pacing this game possesses is really strange when it comes to when the game feels like you're ready for the next thing, and how long that session should last. Sometimes it's short, sometimes it's unreasonably long. So this is certainly a game where if you sit down, invest time, and get to know the ins and outs of each rhythm, and get more and more daring to hit all the points in the track correctly, Thumper is a very satisfying experience. But then there's the last level, Level Infinity. Level Infinity. Loco Cycle. If you ever wanted to see James Gunn and Robert Patrick in the same scene together, and Robert Patrick is a sentient killer motorcycle, then this game might be for you. Loco Cycle as a game, though, is just okay. It does not do much to be very dynamic in your cross-country journey, and you're going to be button-mashing a whole lot to get through the game, and you can certainly tell when the budget ran out when it comes to live-action cutscenes because they start promising. And the main premise of the mechanic getting stuck to the back wheel of the motorcycle, voiced by Lisa Foyles, the game constantly makes you aware of, does not actually really care about a whole lot when it comes to the gameplay, when he clearly gets detached constantly through combat, but whatever, take it or leave it. It's certainly not a bad game. Go check it out if you're interested. Super Motherlode. On first impression, I didn't like this game. Then it turned into a calming mining experience as you dig deeper and deeper into the planet to find out about the dangers the mining company have faced, including death and alien influence. I think the overall feeling is what bugged me at first glance, just because it's monotonous at its core. Keep digging down, collecting different materials until you can't carry anymore, or run out of fuel, return to the depot, make bank, spend bank on upgrades, go back down, rinse repeat. It gets a little insane near the end when there is a ton of junk in your way, and I wish there were more cool points map-wise to drill through that are visually pleasing, but I think the real way of playing this game is with a few other people, which I sadly don't believe that happens a whole lot with a game like this, not in today's market. So take it with a grain of salt that you will be alone digging into the darkness of the planet, not really knowing what could be waiting below. Montero RE. Here it is! This is my game of the year of 2018. I did not get around to finishing any new games this year. Instead, played a casual runner, and played it enough to enjoy all the different unlockable sheebs you can play as. I learned about this game specifically through Valkyrie Aurora's video on games that are relaxing to play during the holiday season. And for a little over $1 Canadian, I couldn't say no, and then the rest of the afternoon just melted away. It was really a good game that I needed in December. So thanks, Sophie. Check out her channel, she's sweet, and she seems to think that she mumbles at times. I don't know, it's up to you. Check her out. Kirby Triple Deluxe, in which Kirby is out for goddamn blood. He cannot be stopped with the infinite power he possesses. Kirby Triple Deluxe is outstanding. The feel of the levels, the color palette the game uses for each world, the non-intrusive story where King DDD gets taken, mistakenly thought to be the hero, and the wealth of things to do just when you think you're done. Sure, you have the story, but there's also a whole bunch of different other games that come with it. There's also the fighting game variant, Kirby Fighters, the rhythm game, DDD's Drum Dash, the arena, DDD Tour, where you play through a streamlined version of the story mode, and collecting so many keychains. If you are going for 100%, you need to do it all, and a little more. So much of Triple Deluxe plays great. They use the 3DS and the 3D capabilities very well as the tilting controls very effectively. And the variety of copy abilities Kirby has, and the depth, control-wise, that they all have, make replayability so inviting. The wealth of content even spills over into 2 spin-off games connected to Triple Deluxe, including Kirby Fighters Deluxe and DDD's Drum Dash Deluxe. Now, I've already completed the Quadruple Ds a few years back, but if you want a Kirby music-themed rhythm game, get that one. But I also finished Kirby Fighters Deluxe as well, and I want to talk about it as well. So, Kirby Fighters Deluxe. The biggest problem I have with Kirby Fighters is that I had to play it technically twice. Once for this game, and on the Triple Deluxe card as well. So, what's the difference? Both fighter games revolve around you fighting through rounds of enemies using a single copy ability. Deluxe includes more copy abilities, including Beetle and Bell. You keep fighting until the final stage, which in Triple Deluxe is Shadow Kirby, who also has your copy ability. And in Deluxe, you fight King DDD, and up to 63 additional weaker versions of DDD, depending on the difficulty you choose. The regular Fighters version is also a single-player affair, where Deluxe has team battles with a CPU, and also multiplayer options. I wish I was able to experience what that was like, because Deluxe really has a feel of being a lesser version Smash Bros., but just Kirby, and no other characters, and just has Kirby with a slew of different copy abilities. And back to the depth of controls with Kirby Deluxe, the depth of controls each copy ability has makes Fighters Deluxe feel like it was, or could have been, an effective fighting game. The only real thing that annoys me about both Fighters versions is playing on very hard, which is kind of expected in order to completely finish these games. Depending on the copy ability that is used by the CPU or with Shadow Kirby, the CPU tends to like cheating with certain moves. I find this when playing as Archer. It's a pain in the ass when you have to stoop to the CPU's level and learn how to be cheap back at them, because that is certainly not the strategy that Hal was going for. Certainly not. I really hope not. So, to wrap this up, if you're looking for a Kirby game to play, or if you have never played a Kirby game before and have a 3DS lying around, I highly encourage you to try and find a copy of Triple Deluxe, or getting on the eShop. It is well worth the price. And lastly, just sliding in at the end of the year is Pokemon Shuffle. I'm surprised that I was able to consider declaring this game finished by the end of the year, because I've been playing this regularly since it came out in 2015. That is roughly 4 years I have invested into this. Well over 1,000 hours, but I can kind of say that I am completely done this free-to-play Pokemon game. For those of you who don't know, Pokemon Shuffle is a match 3 Pokemon game where you can bring in a team of Pokemon, match them together in order to fight another Pokemon, and eventually catch them if you don't have them before. It also means that it's another way of being able to catch them all, and by catch them all, at this point at the end of 2018, there are 991 Pokemon to catch. And those have been available for months now, since that was the last update that Pokemon Shuffle saw before it went all automated. Which is kind of why I'm saying that it's kind of at its end at this point. I think that's what most veteran players have been pretty much saying about it. This is also available not only on 3DS but on mobile. It was available on mobile a little bit later after the 3DS launch, but it's still a really good game to play. I was really satisfied with the free-to-play elements. It really didn't feel like it wanted to take your money. And the quick, 5 minutes I was able to play before putting it down again just kind of went into my routine very easily. It didn't feel like a distraction, it didn't feel like a huge time sink. And it has a wealth of content with finding all of the Pokemon, countless events that you're able to do, competitions, and eventually you will be able to get through all 1,400 stages, 700 main stages plus UX stages, and then all of the extra stages. There's a lot here. And it's all going to test your ability and also your luck, depending on what icons actually fall when you're doing specific Pokemon stages, because some of them get really nasty. So I can definitely say that with Pokemon Shuffle, unless there's going to be some update out of the blue, I am now satisfied with and can now put it down. It's a really good run for that game. Kind of liked it. And that is it for my list of games that I played in 2018. Hope you enjoyed! There are some other videos that I made throughout the year of other games that were not included in this list that were more long form, so if you'd like to check those out, they are in their own playlist. So until next year in 2019's list, see you next time everyone. Take care.